Welcome to Hire Yourself. My name is Pete Gilfill, and I'm here with my business partner, Nat Truitt. We're all about helping people become entrepreneurs and become better business people. Good morning, Nat.
Hey Pete, how are you doing? You seem kind of low energy and tired today. Are you
Oh
okay?
boy, that's a long weekend. Will do that for you. So I went and saw that F9, that new Fast and Furious movie. I got to tell you, I wish I could do some of those crazy stunts in my car.
Yeah, I think they send a Fiero. Is that what it is? A Fiero out to space?
I think so. Yeah, it's just I don't know what kind of car it was, but yeah, just crazy stuff, right? So so I'm all charged up, rested up, all that kind of stuff. Today, I thought what we'd do during our podcast is, how about if we take another question from one of our listeners? Sound good?
Yeah, I like that. It's kind of spontaneous.
All right, Sean, what question do we have out of the mailbox?
Yeah, so this week's question is someone asked about what are some FDD warning signs and things we should look out for in the FDD when reviewing it.
Got it. All right. So let's explain what the franchise disclosure document is. So
that's why I was just going to say that FDD sounds like insider jargon to me.
Yeah. So FDD is an acronym for Franchise Disclosure Document. And all franchises are required to have a franchise disclosure document. It is a standard format of 23 different items from that standpoint, so it's kind of prescriptive. Now, these documents are really long, so there are over 200 pages. So if you have trouble sleeping at night, these will help you from that standpoint. So the idea behind it is the FDD is to ensure that you're an informed investor. So it has all the information you need to know about the franchise system from that standpoint. I'm sure you enjoy reading FDDs, Nat.
Yeah, of course I go for the Cliff Notes, but I think it's actually encouraging that franchising is heavily regulated by the Federal Trade Commission, and every franchise has the disclosure document. It gives our people researching franchises some real meat to sink their teeth into as they're researching the franchise.
Certainly. And I think it's a big part of our due diligence, right? And so as we take a look at the franchise disclosure document, everybody goes to, 6, 7, and 19. They want to find out the investment range. They want to find out what the financial potential is in the item 19. But
how much can I make?
How much do I have to invest in? How much money I got to make?
Exactly.
But there's so much more in there. And we're going to just talk about some potential red flags, some areas to take a look at. That doesn't necessarily mean they're bad as you look at the information. You just have to kind of understand it and dig into it a little bit. Ask the franchisor. So let's start out with one of the areas in the FDD that we should look at and put a little extra attention into. So what would be the first one that you think of?
I always kind of think it's important to think about or see if there's any litigation with the brand. So litigation usually, sometimes it could be innocent, but usually it indicates that there's some disgruntled owners in the system. So I think like anything legal stuff, which is all disclosed right there in the franchise disclosure document.
Yeah, so it has pending litigation or past litigation. And I think the idea is that litigation isn't bad. It happens everywhere. I mean, that's part of today's litigious society. So I think you have to really ask the franchisor and get understanding if there is some litigation documented in the FDD, is to spend some time digging in, talk to the franchisor. Because again, anybody can sue anybody in today's world. And so I think it's a indicator, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. You just need to really ask them what happened here, and then you have to trust that you're getting the real story.
Totally.
Yeah, good. What's another one as you think about looking at the FDD, reviewing it? What's another area that you'd put a little extra focus on?
Well, I like the fact that there's a list of all the franchise owners. Current owners has typically their phone number, and then also past owners. So I think one thing that's kind of important to look at, is what's the turnover basically in the system, and then trying to figure out why people are turning over. Maybe they've been there, normal franchise agreements is 10 years. So if guys are buying a franchise when they're 55 years old and they're doing it for 10 years, then it kind of makes sense that they're selling and transitioning out, so that's a good reason. But you want to see what the reasons for the turnover would be.
Yeah, and you can certainly talk to franchisees and ask the franchisor, but that's natural, right? There is always turnover. People are retiring, they're moving on to new things and stuff like that. So we want to look at it. It may be an indicator, doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. We just want to take a look at turnover. What would be another area you'd focus on that as you look at the FTD?
Well, I think I'm going to turn it back to you, Pete.
You're going to turn it back to me.
What do
You're going
you
to put
think
on,
would be another good
yeah.
area?
So, I think one of the things that we have always talked about is the experience of the leadership team, right? So, you can be a great leader, you can be a great business person if you have that small business, right? So I got my small business, I got my one location, I decided to franchise it, so basically I think as leadership, it's a different type of leadership to be running a small business to running a franchise system with 100 franchisees. It's just different leadership skills. So I think it's really important.
Yeah. I was going to say, I totally agree with that, because, you have a lot of times the founder might have, gotten the pilot location open and have 2 or 3 locations open. And then if you see on the franchise disclosure document, there's only one person, you kind of, might want to be a little bit cautious. Like, how do we go from 3 to 1,000, with this one person? It's kind of nice to see maybe a team of 3, 4, 5 people on the leadership team.
Well, I think that's a great point. Is we look at it, it's not only their leadership skills, but the leadership team they bring in. And I think it's pretty cool. Some of these franchise systems are bringing in some people that have great experience, and so you just have to understand the experience of the leadership team, and these are the people that are going to help bring it forward to help evolve the brand, to build the brand, and stuff like that. And so you want to get to know them and get a good understanding. So in experience, having run a franchise system isn't critical, but you want to understand what they're bringing to the table as leaders. So
some people really like kind of being early adopters, and some kind of like it's kind of like Goldilocks, right? Like, some like to be early, some like to be in the middle, and some like, super established. So it's like there's something for everybody out there.
Well, but even an early adopter, you could be joining a franchise system where the founder, the person that's driving it forward, has got a ton of experience
Totally.
in franchising, right? Like, I think of a couple of these guys that they've built franchise systems, they sold them, they're starting new ones.
Yep.
So it's you can be an early adopter with a franchise system, but the franchisor, the franchise leader is got a ton of experience. So it's a really fine line from that standpoint. What about Nat, as I think a little bit about franchises and the FTD, the financial stability or instability, right? So in the FTD, they got to list their corporate financials, but a lot of times there isn't a lot of meat there. Do you find that?
Yeah, I mean, if I have any criticism of the disclosure document, is that some of these financials aren't standardized, right? Because you see every franchise system seems to have a different way to put in their financials. Yeah, it's important to kind of dissect that and see what the financial stability is of the parent company.
Yeah. I think it lends itself to having a conversation with the franchisor to understand their financials for sure. And then what about, from a standpoint is that they can also, when we talk about financial instability, I believe that the owners of the franchise systems, the leaders, they have to disclose if they've had a bankruptcy or inconsistent financial performance in the past.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we're kind of looking for franchises that have a clean bill of health, right? I mean, the ideal scenario would be no bankruptcies in the history of the company, and then also with the members that are part of the leadership team, because I think all that's disclosed typically.
Yeah, I think you got to kind of trust that they're putting that information in there. So from that point, and certainly talk to them about that. Okay, what about like references? So the FTD is required to have a list of the franchisees. So sometimes they'll put them in there, but they won't have all their contact information. That is that a red flag?
Yeah, I would say that was a red flag. Most FTDs I've seen typically have name and phone number, and like it has a good amount, like it has a way to contact people.
Yeah.
If there was no contact information, I think that would probably be a red flag.
Yeah, or certainly you could ask for the contact information if it's
Right.
not there from a standpoint. Okay, and one of the other areas that I think as you look through the FTD is kind of excessive fees, right? Where they're they're making money on everything that they do. So, no, seriously, like they take a markup on this, a markup on that, because
Right.
the FDD has to show if you make something beyond kind of the royalties, you have to disclose it in the agreement, right? So,
Right.
do you see that as one of the areas?
Yeah, I think, like, from my opinion, like, I don't like it if franchises are trying to double dip, right? Because they're trying, they're getting a hefty royalty, which is what, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10% of gross revenue. And then if they're double dipping and they're trying to charge, like, make money on every product that maybe is being shipped to the store, then I feel like that's double. Like, there needs to be a trade-off, some trade-offs, or it needs to be fair. And then the other thing is, the little things to look out for is, do they are they making not kickbacks, but are they like have an affiliate relationship maybe with the merchant account, like, which would be the credit card processing? Do they have an affiliate relationship with the equipment provider? Things like that. Oh, that, which is great, is disclosed in the FDD. So that gives you the tools to be able to understand, how the parent company is financially motivated.
Yeah, and I think that's transparency. They've got to be transparent in the relationship and how they're financially compensated and how you are financially compensated. Very good. And what about as we take a look at the FDD? As I think about it a little bit, the idea of the territory size is something
Yeah.
that I also think about, right? Because a lot of times, the territories, it's defined in there and they could be small territories, but I always want to kind of know the rationale of how they came up with the size of the territories. Do you see that as a potential area for a red flag?
Yeah, I feel like territory is very dramatic. Like, there's two buckets, in my opinion. It's like service-based franchises and retail-based, and those are two totally different animals. As you know, my background, I got started, I bought a senior care franchise, and I bought one territory. It had 150,000 total population. I was in my 20s, so I was stretching just to get the one territory.
Yeah.
And like, some of my adjacent neighbors one bought 3 territories, one bought 5 territories. So I ended up kind of being like the hole in the donut. And so, I mean, I think you do want to look at the territory size. So what ultimately happens is you figure out what the market potential ultimately is. And with one territory, my territory was too small for me to be able to meet my income goals ultimately, right? I mean,
Yep.
It was a good territory, but I think it's important to kind of understand, you need to understand the territory and potential for growth with the territory.
Yeah, right. So it may look small, but there might be huge potential, or
Totally.
it may look large, but it still doesn't have enough
Yeah.
potential from a standpoint. So it's understanding the territory and what it can do or can't do.
Well, and with franchising, what they try to do is standardize the territory. So usually they have 3 or 4 variables, right? So in senior care, you have like the total population, but usually they'll give you a certain amount of facilities, like assisted living facilities, or they might give you 7,500 people over age 85 as an example. I don't know, I'm just making it up. But then they try to standardize it so everybody has a good territory.
Yeah, absolutely. What about, the FTD has to show franchisees that are coming and going, right? And, more of this growth, because a franchise company can grow really slow and they've been franchising for 10 years and they got 20 franchises, right? And the flip side is they can have explosive growth. And both of them are indicators. Do you look at that in terms of the growth pattern of the franchise system in the FTD?
I haven't focused too much on that. I know I agree it's important to understand what the growth is, and then it kind of circles back to like what's the support at corporate as far as financials and leadership team and even headcount at the corporate office, right? Because if they're growing rapidly, you want to see them adding headcount and support for the franchise owners in the field. Sometimes slow and steady is good. Sometimes it's more exciting to be on a rocket ship. So I think it's good to dig into that a little bit, but I don't feel like that would be too much of a red flag, though.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that with franchise systems, with the kind of explosive growth, can they hire ahead, right? Are they
Yeah.
adding people, the support, whether it's operations people or, from that standpoint, it's adding the leadership team from that standpoint. So absolutely. Okay, good. And then what about, just kind of the overall support, right? I mean, there's really kind of three areas that they highlight in the FDD in regards to support. That's technology, training, and marketing, and certainly some other support. But
Yeah.
is that stuff that, as you review the FDD, there could be potential red flags there?
You're saying like if they didn't have good marketing as an
Yeah,
example?
or they really don't demonstrate much in that FDD in regards to technology, what you get, or training, from that standpoint.
Yeah, I think you want some meat on the bones for that, because that's what you're ultimately paying for. I mean, in general, franchising to me seems to be a lot of times it's marketing, right? Like it's hyper local and it's marketing. So you do want to have, some ways to get customers ultimately in your local market. So if they're like, hey, yeah, just come on in for training and then go back and get your customers, that might be like, whoa, that doesn't sound too proprietary right there.
Yeah. No, I think it's, you want to make sure they're investing in all those areas to ensure that you have success. So,
Yeah.
bottom line is that the FDD, it's a great document, right? 23 different sections designed to ensure an informed investor. And I think it can be a little daunting at 200 pages long. Right. And
Right.
we've certainly talked about some areas that there could be potential red flags, but I think the idea is getting in and understanding it. But more importantly, is having dialogue with your business partner, right? Your future business partner, the franchisor, to understand the different areas, because you're going to be in a partnership and this is the framework of the partnership. And
Right.
so, there can be red flags. It could be good or bad. You got to kind of dig in with it. So it's not just as simple as if you got high turnover, is that bad? Well, we don't know, right? Without understanding the context to it. So anyways,
The nice thing is, ultimately, I mean, I don't know how many people you recommend, how many franchise owners you suggest your candidates talk to, but ultimately they can kind of cross-reference what's in the FDD, both with the leadership at the franchise company, but also like boots on the ground. They can talk to franchise owners in other parts of the country and just kind of do a gut check with anything that might be, a concern for them or bothering them.
yeah, that's a great point. So they can do, through validation conversations with existing franchisees, they can ask them about the turnover in the system, or how is the marketing support or the technology
Totally.
support, or are the fees. So your point is very good. So you can kind of cross-reference with your conversations with franchisees. Well, Nat, I'm off to go read an FDD. I love it. It's good. It helps me sleep at night. When I can't sleep, I just pull one of those babies out. So, all right, very good.
All right, talk to you later.
All right, thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Hire Yourself podcast. For more resources, check out our website at hireyourself.com. And remember to subscribe to this podcast to receive each episode. Please leave us a rating, and we'd love to hear your feedback or suggestions for topics.